I thought I was my husband's first love, until I found his ex-wife's wedding video. Hi everyone, I'm a 26-year-old woman from Hyderabad, and this story is something I've never really told anyone except my husband. But lately, the thoughts in my head have been getting louder, and I honestly don't know if I'm overthinking everything or if my feelings are valid. My husband Arjun is 25. We've been married for almost 2 years now, and we recently had our first baby boy. From the outside, our life looks perfect. But there's something that has been quietly eating away at me. And that something is his ex-wife. Yes, my husband was married before me. And somehow, I didn't know that when we first started dating. But before I explain that part, let me tell you a little about Arjun. Arjun grew up in a small town near Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone's business. His father runs a small grocery store, and his mother works as a teacher in a government school. Arjun has always been the quiet type. The type of person who prefers reading books or watching documentaries instead of going out partying. When he finished school, he joined the Indian Army as a technical officer. He was only 21 at the time. His parents were incredibly proud of him. But before joining the army, there was someone very important in his life. Her name was Priya. Priya was the complete opposite of Arjun. She was loud, confident, extremely social, and the type of person who could walk into a room full of strangers and become friends with everyone within 10 minutes. They had gone to the same school since childhood. Apparently, Arjun had a crush on her since class 9. But Priya never noticed him. She was always surrounded by friends, busy with college events, dance competitions, and social gatherings. Arjun, on the other hand, was the quiet boy sitting in the back row. They didn't actually start dating until after school. Both of them ended up going to colleges in Hyderabad. That's when things change. Priya had just come out of a messy breakup. Arjun was there for her as a friend. And eventually, friendship turned into something more. According to my husband, their relationship moved very quickly. Within 6 months they were already talking about marriage. Their families approved because they had known each other for years. Then something unexpected happened. COVID, lockdowns began everywhere, and the army gave Arjun sudden orders to move to a base in Rajasthan. Priya didn't want a long-distance relationship, so they made a quick decision. They got engaged, and only 3 months later, they got married. A small wedding with limited guests because of the pandemic restrictions. At least, that's what I later found out. Because when I first met Arjun, I had absolutely no idea he had been married before. Now let me tell you about how we met. 2 years ago, I was working at a marketing agency in Hyderabad. My life was pretty simple. Work during the day, Netflix at night, occasional coffee outings with friends. Nothing dramatic. One evening my best friend Ria convinced me to join her birthday dinner. I almost didn't go because I had work the next morning. But thankfully, I did. Because that night I met Arjun. He was sitting quietly at the end of the table while everyone else was laughing and talking loudly. Ria introduced us, and within 10 minutes we were deep in conversation about our favorite TV shows. Turns out we both love the same comedy series and even quoted the same iconic scene from it. That moment broke the ice. And for the rest of the night, we barely talked to anyone else. It felt incredibly natural, like we had known each other for years. Over the next few weeks we started meeting more often. Coffee dates, late-night phone calls, random drives around the city. Talking to him was easy, effortless. He listened to everything I said. And he always remembered the small details. After 2 months, we officially started dating. And honestly, those months were some of the happiest times of my life. But there was something about Arjun that always felt slightly mysterious. He rarely talked about his past relationships. Whenever the topic came up, he would simply say, "I was in a serious relationship before, but it didn't work out." I respected that. Everyone has a past, and I didn't want to push him to talk about something painful. Then one day he told me something that changed everything. He said he would soon be deploying overseas for several months. I was shocked. We had only been together for 3 months at that point. But somehow, I already knew. This man was the one I wanted to spend my life with. So when he asked if I would wait for him, I said yes, without hesitation. And during those months while he was deployed, we stayed in constant contact. Video calls, messages, voice notes. He even wrote me emails sometimes, which felt strangely romantic in a digital world. Everything felt perfect, until one afternoon, when I made a discovery that completely blindsided me. I was scrolling through Facebook when I came across a post from someone named Meena Sharma. I didn't recognize the name at first, but then I noticed the profile picture. It was Arjun standing next to a middle-aged woman, smiling. I clicked the profile, and quickly realized something. This woman was Arjun's mother. Curious, I started scrolling through her old posts. That's when I saw it. A wedding photo. Arjun, wearing a sherwani, standing next to a beautiful woman in a red bridal lehenga. The caption read, "My son Arjun and my lovely daughter-in-law Priya. May your life be full of happiness." My heart dropped. I stared at the photo for what felt like several minutes. Then I checked the date. It was only 3 years ago. My hands started shaking. I kept scrolling. More photos, engagement pictures, family celebrations, then something even worse, a wedding video. That was the moment I realized something that completely stunned me. My boyfriend, the man I was planning to spend my life with, had once been married, and he never told me. I remember sitting there on my bed feeling completely numb. Part of me wanted to call him immediately. Another part of me was terrified of what the truth might be. So instead, I kept scrolling, and that decision would lead me down a rabbit hole I never expected. Because the more I looked into Priya's life, the more I started comparing myself to her, and that comparison would slowly begin to destroy my peace of mind. But what I discovered about their marriage later was something I never saw coming, and it completely changed the way I saw my husband forever. Hi everyone, I'm back with the next part of my story. If you listened to the first part, you know the moment that changed everything for me. I had just discovered something shocking. My boyfriend, Arjun, the man I had been dating for months, had been married before. And he had never told me. I remember staring at my phone screen that night, my heart beating so fast it almost hurt. The wedding photos were everywhere on his mother's Facebook page. Arjun and Priya standing together during their engagement ceremony. Priya smiling brightly while Arjun placed a ring on her finger. Then more photos, haldi ceremony, mehendi, family group pictures, and finally, their wedding day. The video was only 3 minutes long, but it felt like an entire lifetime. Priya looked beautiful. She had long black hair, confident eyes, and the kind of smile that instantly lights up a room. Arjun looked younger, a little more nervous, but also happy. That's what hurt the most. He looked happy. I closed the video quickly, but the image stayed in my mind. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Why didn't he tell me? Was he hiding something, or was the marriage so painful that he truly wanted to erase it from his life? I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning I finally decided to call him. Because no matter how much it scared me, I needed answers. When he picked up the phone, he sounded cheerful like always. Hey, Ananya, he said. How's your day going? But I couldn't pretend everything was normal. So I asked him directly. Arjun, were you married before? There was silence on the line. Not the normal silence of a bad connection. The kind of silence that tells you someone is struggling to find the right words. Finally he spoke. Yes, just one word, but it carried so much weight. I remember feeling a strange mix of emotions. Shock, anger, confusion, but also relief. At least he didn't deny it. I asked him the question that had been haunting me all night. Why didn't you tell me? He took a deep breath. Then he explained something that changed the way I saw the situation. He said his marriage to Priya had ended very badly. Not just emotionally, but socially. Because they came from a small town near Vijayawada where everyone knew each other. When the divorce happened, rumors spread everywhere. Some people blamed Priya, others blamed Arjun. According to him, some extremely hurtful things were said about him in the community. Things that weren't even true. And because of that, he tried to completely distance himself from that part of his life. He blocked Priya on every social media platform. He stopped visiting his hometown as often. And he tried to focus on moving forward. Then he said something that stayed with me. I didn't tell you because I didn't want my past to scare you away. Hearing that made my anger fade a little. Because I could hear genuine regret in his voice. Still, I had more questions. So many questions. How long were you married? I asked. Almost 3 years, he replied. And why did you divorce? He hesitated again. Then he said something I didn't expect. She asked for it. According to Arjun, their relationship had started strong. But after marriage, their personalities clashed more and more. Priya loved social gatherings. She wanted to go out constantly, travel with friends, attend events. Arjun preferred quiet evenings at home, reading, watching movies, or just relaxing. At first they tried to compromise. But over time the differences became bigger. Then there were financial problems. Priya loved shopping and expensive things. But Arjun's army salary had limits. Arguments started happening more frequently. Then another issue appeared. Priya missed her family constantly. Living far away from home in Rajasthan made her miserable. She cried often and talked about wanting to move back. Arjun tried to support her, but the distance and stress eventually broke their relationship. Finally one day she told him she wanted a divorce. He said he was completely shocked. Especially because something strange had happened just weeks before that. They had adopted a dog together. Priya had insisted on it. She said it would make their home feel happier. But shortly after getting the dog, she told him she wanted to leave. Listening to all this made me feel incredibly sad for him. It sounded like he had gone through something painful. But even after hearing his explanation, something in my mind wouldn't stop. Curiosity. After we ended the call, I told myself I would stop looking at Priya's social media. I told myself it didn't matter. Arjun loved me now. His past was over. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. And unfortunately, I didn't stop. Instead, I searched for Priya's Instagram. It took less than a minute to find it. Her account was public, and that's when the real rabbit hole began. Her profile looked perfect. Thousands of followers, beautiful travel photos, pictures from cafes in Bangalore and Goa, group photos with friends. She looked confident, stylish, and incredibly social. Everything Arjun had described about her seemed true. She was the exact opposite of me. I'm a quiet person. I don't post much online. I don't enjoy large parties. And slowly, I started doing something unhealthy. I started comparing myself to her. Her smile looked brighter. Her life looked more exciting. Her photos looked happier. Even though I knew social media only shows the best moments, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I scrolled, the worse I felt. Then I noticed something interesting. There were no photos of Arjun anywhere. It was like he had been completely erased from her life. Which made sense. They were divorced. But somehow it still bothered me. Because part of me kept wondering something I didn't want to admit. What if he still loved her? That thought stayed in my mind for weeks. But eventually I pushed it aside. Because my relationship with Arjun kept growing stronger. Months passed. Then he returned from deployment. And that was when our relationship moved to the next level. But I had no idea that the thoughts about Priya would return years later. In a way that would affect my marriage far more than I expected. And the reason it came back was because of something unexpected that happened after our baby was born. Something that started with a simple moment during maternity leave, and ended with me discovering something online that made my stomach drop. Hi everyone, I'm back again. If you listened to the previous parts, you know that I discovered my boyfriend Arjun had been married before, and that discovery sent me into a deep rabbit hole of curiosity about his ex-wife Priya. But after we talked about it, things between us actually became stronger. In fact, the months after he returned from deployment were some of the happiest months of my life. When Arjun came back to Hyderabad, the first thing he did was drive straight from the airport to my apartment. I still remember opening the door. He looked thinner from the deployment, a little tired, but when he saw me his entire face lit up. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. We just hugged, and in that moment I knew something for sure. No matter what his past looked like, this man loved me. A few weeks later, Arjun got new orders. He was being transferred to a base in Pune. When he told me the news, I thought my heart would sink. Long distance again, but instead, he said something that surprised me. Come with me. I laughed at first, thinking he was joking. But he looked completely serious. I don't want another relationship where distance slowly destroys everything, he said. If we're doing this, let's do it properly. That was the moment we started talking seriously about our future. Within months, I moved with him to Pune. Leaving Hyderabad wasn't easy. My parents were worried. My friends thought I was moving too fast. But something about my relationship with Arjun felt different. We didn't fight much. We communicated easily. And living together felt incredibly natural. Like we had been doing it for years. Our life in Pune was simple but happy. Arjun worked long hours at the base. I found a remote marketing job so I could work from home. In the evenings we cooked together, watched shows, and sometimes took long walks around the neighborhood. Those quiet evenings became my favorite part of the day. Because that's when Arjun opened up the most. He would tell stories about his childhood. About growing up in his small town near Vijayawada. About how his mother always forced him to study while other kids were playing outside. Sometimes he even talked about his old marriage. But only briefly, and never in too much detail. I noticed something about the way he spoke about Priya. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness either. It was more like exhaustion. Like someone remembering a chapter of life that had already ended. Eventually I stopped thinking about her as much. Our life was moving forward. And then something unexpected happened. One evening, while we were cooking dinner, Arjun casually said something that completely changed our plans. I think I'm ready to be a father. I nearly dropped the spoon I was holding. We had talked about kids before. But only as a future idea. Something that would happen years later. But Arjun looked serious. I've seen too many soldiers wait too long for the perfect time, he said. Then life happens and the timing never feels right. That conversation stayed in my mind for weeks. Eventually, we decided to try. And surprisingly, it happened quickly. When I saw the positive pregnancy test, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. Arjun, however, looked happier than I had ever seen him. He picked me up and spun me around the living room like a scene from a movie. That was also when we made another decision. We decided to get married. But we didn't want a huge wedding. Both of us hated being the center of attention. So we chose something simple. We eloped. Only Arjun's parents were able to attend because of travel restrictions at the time. My parents watched through a video call. It wasn't a grand ceremony. But it felt meaningful. Standing there beside Arjun, holding his hand, I felt completely sure about my decision. This was the life I wanted. Months later, our son was born. And suddenly everything changed again. Anyone who has had a newborn will understand what I mean. Sleep disappears. Free time disappears. Your entire world starts revolving around a tiny human who needs you every moment. But despite the exhaustion, those first months were beautiful. Watching Arjun hold our son for the first time was one of the most emotional moments of my life. He looked terrified at first, like he was holding something incredibly fragile, but within days he was completely in love. However, once my maternity leave started, something unexpected happened. Because babies sleep a lot, but not always in convenient ways. My son refused to sleep in his crib. The only place he slept peacefully was on my chest. So every day I would sit on the couch for hours while he napped. Unable to move, unable to do much, the only thing I could really do was scroll through my phone. And unfortunately, that's when the thoughts about Priya came back. At first it was innocent. I just wondered what she was doing now. So one afternoon, while my son was sleeping on my chest, I opened Instagram and searched for her name again. Her profile appeared instantly, and the moment I opened it, something strange happened in my chest. A feeling I didn't want to admit. Jealousy. Her life still looked exciting. Trips, friends, restaurants, beautiful photos. Meanwhile I was sitting on a couch in pajamas, covered in baby milk and barely sleeping. I knew it wasn't fair to compare, but my brain kept doing it anyway. Then I remembered something else. Arjun's mother. So I opened her Facebook page again. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Years ago, she used to post about Priya constantly. Photos of family dinners, photos when Arjun and Priya visited their hometown, posts celebrating their anniversary. She looked so proud of them. But when I looked at the posts from the last 2 years, there was almost nothing about me. No wedding photos, no baby photos, no posts about us visiting. It felt like our life together barely existed on her social media. Even though she was always polite and kind to me in person. That discovery made my mind start asking dangerous questions. Did she secretly prefer Priya? Was Priya the daughter-in-law she originally wanted? And the worst thought of all started creeping into my head. What if Priya decided she wanted Arjun back? The more I thought about it, the more anxious I felt. Because Arjun had admitted something before. He said if Priya had never asked for divorce, he probably wouldn't have asked for it himself. And that single sentence kept echoing in my mind. Would he still be with her today if she had stayed? Was I only here because she left? These thoughts became harder and harder to ignore. Until one evening, curiosity got the better of me again. I went back to Priya's Instagram. But this time, I noticed something new. Something that made my heart start racing. Because there was a photo she had posted recently. And in the background of that photo, I saw something that connected directly to my husband. Something that made me realize this story wasn't as finished as I thought. And what I discovered next would completely change the way I saw everything. The moment I saw that photo, my heart started beating faster. At first it looked completely normal. It was just another Instagram post from Priya. She was standing in front of a cafe, smiling at the camera while holding a cup of coffee. The caption said something simple. Weekend escape. Nothing strange about that, but my eyes weren't focused on her. They were focused on the background. Because behind her, hanging on the wall of the cafe, was something I recognized immediately. A wooden sign with the name of the cafe carved into it. I had seen that exact sign before. Many times, because that cafe was located in Pune, only about 15 minutes away from the apartment where Arjun and I live. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for several seconds, trying to convince myself I was mistaken. Maybe it was just another cafe with the same name. Maybe the sign looked similar. But deep down, I already knew the truth. She was in the same city as us. My fingers felt cold as I opened the location tag on the photo. And the map confirmed it. The cafe was only a short drive away from our home. For a moment, I felt a strange rush of panic. Why was she here? Had she moved to Pune? Was she just visiting? And the worst thought slipped into my mind before I could stop it. Did Arjun know? I immediately felt guilty for thinking that. Arjun had never given me any reason to doubt him. He had Priya blocked everywhere. He never talked about her unless I asked. And yet, the thought wouldn't go away. I kept scrolling through Priya's recent posts. That's when I noticed something even stranger. Over the past few weeks, several of her photos were taken in Pune. Restaurants, parks, shopping streets. She hadn't just visited, she had been here for a while. My mind started racing. Was it just coincidence? Pune is a big city. Thousands of people move here every year. There was no reason her being here had anything to do with Arjun. But when jealousy starts growing in your mind, logic becomes very quiet. That evening Arjun came home from work looking exhausted. He kissed our son on the forehead and sat down next to me on the couch. "How was your day?" he asked. I wanted to act normal, but the question kept sitting on the tip of my tongue. So finally I asked, "Arjun, does Priya live in Pune now?" The reaction was immediate. His body stiffened slightly, not dramatically, but enough for me to notice. Then he frowned. "What? Why are you asking about her?" "I just saw something online," I said carefully. He sighed and rubbed his face with his hands. "I don't know where she lives," he said. "I haven't talked to her in years." His answer sounded honest, but something about the situation still bothered me. So I told him what I had seen. The cafe photo, the location tag, the posts from around the city. Arjun looked genuinely surprised. "She's here," he said, For a few seconds he looked deep in thought. Then he shrugged. Well, it's a big city. He stood up and walked toward the kitchen. But before leaving the room he said something that caught my attention. If she's here, I hope I never run into her. His tone was calm, but firm. It sounded like someone talking about a memory they truly didn't want to revisit. That should have reassured me. And for a moment, it did. But unfortunately, the story didn't end there. Because 2 weeks later something happened that brought Priya back into our lives in a way none of us expected. It started on a Saturday afternoon. Arjun had the day off from work. We decided to take our son for a walk in a nearby park. The weather was nice. Families were everywhere. Kids were playing. Couples were sitting on benches eating street food. It felt peaceful, normal. Arjun was pushing the stroller while I walked beside him. We were talking about small things, groceries, bills, our son's sleep schedule. Then suddenly, Arjun stopped walking. I looked at him, confused. His eyes were focused on something across the park, and the expression on his face changed instantly. It wasn't anger. It wasn't happiness either. It looked more like shock. Slowly, I turned my head to see what he was looking at. And that's when I saw her, standing near a food stall across the walkway. Priya. She looked almost exactly like she did in her Instagram photos. Confident, stylish, talking to someone while holding a drink. But then something strange happened. She looked in our direction, and her eyes met Arjun's. For a moment, everything around us felt silent, even though the park was full of people. The three of us just stood there, frozen in place, because after years of being completely out of each other's lives, Arjun and his ex-wife had just run into each other again. And what happened next was something I never expected. Because the person who broke the silence first wasn't Arjun. It was Priya, and the first words she said made my stomach tighten. Arjun, it's been a long time. Priya stood there quietly for a moment after asking if we could talk. The park suddenly felt much louder than before. Children were laughing somewhere behind us. Vendors were calling out to sell snacks. But the three of us were stuck in a strange silence. Arjun shifted his weight slightly while holding the stroller. I could tell he was uncomfortable. Not angry, just uneasy. Finally he spoke. All right, he said calmly. What do you want to talk about? Priya looked at me for a second before answering. Her expression softened slightly. I'm not here to cause problems, she said. I promise. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to walk away with our baby and leave them alone. But another part of me needed to hear whatever she was about to say. Priya took a slow breath. I moved to Pune 3 months ago, she began. Arjun didn't react. His face stayed neutral. She continued. I got a job here. A marketing company offered me a position, and it was a good opportunity, so I accepted. That part didn't surprise me. Pune was full of new job opportunities. But the way she was speaking made it clear that wasn't the real reason she wanted to talk. Priya looked directly at Arjun again. I didn't know you were living here, she said. Arjun nodded slightly. I assumed that, he replied. For a moment it felt like the conversation might end there. But Priya shook her head. There's something I wanted to say, for a long time. Arjun crossed his arms. Okay. Priya hesitated again. Then she finally said the words that surprised me. I'm sorry. Arjun blinked. Not dramatically. Just a small moment of surprise. I know that doesn't change anything, Priya continued. But when our marriage ended, I handled things badly. She looked down at the ground. I said things about you that weren't true. I was angry and emotional and I blamed you for everything. Arjun stayed quiet. Priya continued speaking slowly. And when I moved back home, people kept asking questions. Instead of telling the truth, I let them believe you were the problem. Now I understood what Arjun meant years ago when he said rumors had spread in his hometown. Priya looked up again. I regretted that later, she said softly. But by then the damage was already done. For the first time since the conversation started, Arjun spoke with a little emotion in his voice. Yeah, he said quietly. It was. There was another pause. Then Priya looked at the stroller. Our son was sleeping peacefully. She smiled slightly. He's beautiful, she said. Arjun glanced down at him. Thank you. Something about that small moment felt strangely peaceful. But Priya still hadn't finished what she wanted to say. She turned back toward Arjun. I didn't come here to reopen the past, she said. I just wanted to say sorry in person. You deserve that. Arjun stared at her for a few seconds. Then he nodded slowly. I appreciate that. And that was it. No dramatic argument. No emotional breakdown. Just two people acknowledging the past and finally letting it go. Priya gave a small smile. I'm glad you're happy, she said. Then she looked at me. And I'm glad he found someone who fits him better than I did. I wasn't expecting that, but something about the way she said it felt sincere. Not bitter, not jealous, just honest. She took a small step backward. I should go, she said. Arjun nodded. Take care. Priya turned around and began walking away through the park. Within seconds she disappeared into the crowd. For a moment, neither Arjun nor I said anything. Then he let out a long breath. Well, that was unexpected. I laughed slightly. Yeah, it was. We started walking again, but this time something inside me felt different. The jealousy that had been building inside my mind for months suddenly felt smaller, because for the first time I had actually seen Priya in real life. Not through photos, not through social media, not through old wedding videos. And the truth was something I hadn't expected. She wasn't a villain. She wasn't someone trying to steal my husband back. She was just a person who had once been part of his life, and made mistakes like everyone else. That night, after putting our baby to sleep, Arjun and I sat together on the couch. I told him something honestly. I used to feel jealous of her. He looked surprised. Why? I shrugged. I guess because she was part of your life before me. Arjun smiled gently. Then he said something that completely erased the last of my worries. She was part of my past, he said. Then he pointed toward the baby monitor showing our sleeping son. But this is my life. And in that moment I finally understood something important. Sometimes the past only has power over us if we keep looking back at it. And that night, for the first time in months, I stopped thinking about Priya completely. Because I realized something simple. My husband had a past. But I was his future. And that was more than enough.